I'm Tim Monroe, and this is what I really want to talk about. There's something fascinating about every single one of us. Everybody has a passion and a story to tell, something that lights them up. Every week I sit down with interesting people and we talk about the things that really matter to them and to all of us. It might be funny, it might be weighty, it might be weird. It's what I really want to talk about. Today we're talking to Dr. Collis Robinson. Collis currently serves as the Dean of Student Labor at Berea College. He has a BA in Education Studies from Berea College, an MA in Education Technology from Georgetown College, and a doctorate in Educational Leadership from the University of Kentucky. Dr. Robinson is a dynamic and accomplished professional who has dedicated his life to education and community building. Born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, he has called Kentucky home for the past 16 years. Berea gave Collis the opportunity to obtain a debt-free bachelor's degree, which further fueled his passion for education. Driven by his desire to provide the same access and opportunities that he has had, Collis is continuously seeking innovative ways to enhance systems and processes to support the student experience. He's also a proud husband and father to 3 boys, 10 months old, 8 and 9, so he is a very busy man. Welcome, Collis. What do you really want to talk about today?
Thank you. I really want to talk about education and the power of it and what it has the potential to do for someone like myself.
Mm-hmm. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us what it was like to grow up in Greenville, South Carolina, and sort of what were the early years of education there like for you?
Yeah, so growing up in Greenville, I have fond memories of it. I grew up with my cousins and family. In fact, everyone lives in Greenville. And in terms of education was certainly something K-12 that we did and had to do. But there really wasn't much focus on like life after you finish high school. And so I remember in my high school years, I really wasn't thinking about college. It was mentors and teachers at my high school, Greenville High, that really started to help me start thinking about that in a way that I really hadn't. And my family we really hadn't talked about it either.
So when you were even just in grade school, say, did you like school? Were you a good student? Were you what kind of student were you?
Yeah, I would like to think I was a good student.
Yeah.
I love school. I always liked school,
Yeah.
and I always liked to go and enjoy it. I mean, case in point, on my senior year, there was senior skip day, and I was the student that went to school on senior skip day. So I think you can conclude from that I really loved education and loved going to school.
Did that come from your parents, or did that come from somewhere else?
That's a good question. I think really what really drove me to like education would be the various mentors and educators in my life. I think back to my elementary experience. There was a teacher, Miss Houghton, who really, left an impact on me. Middle school, same thing. I can think of Miss Cobbs and Mr. Edwards, and then high school, same thing. So I really think it was the teachers along the way that really instilled a passion for me. Mr. Henson, whether it's my school librarian, the list goes on.
And are you first generation to go to college in your family?
I am first generation to go to college, yeah.
That's cool. And what was Greenville like in that way? Sort of what percentage maybe of the graduating high school class would be going off to college?
Yeah, that's a good question. Greenville High was a blend. I think you would find it was some well-to-do families at the high school, and then there were some families who were on the lower socioeconomic end. So I think it was middle of the road. I mean, there's certainly students leaving to go to big schools from Greenville High. So I think it just depended on where you were coming from. So my guess would be, just like the demographics, you would find that half of the students was going. In fact, my high school was about the size of Berea.
Yeah.
And so I think you would find, half the students going off and others maybe not. Community college, things of that sort. And for some, it might even be military or working in some local area, local factories.
So you mentioned these sort of mentors or, special teachers who maybe sort of lit a fire in you and gave you this passion for education. Can you think of maybe one time or moment or specific person who sort of really sort of pushed you on your way?
Wow, I can think of several.
Yeah.
I'll give us just one or two. One really resonated with me. Growing up, there were times when I didn't have my mother or father. I had a loving family around me. My stepmother stepped in even when she didn't have to, and I remember in my elementary years, there would always be a book fair at school. And while I was taken care of, I had clothes and shoes. There wasn't extra money. So I often didn't have money to go to the book fair. But Miss Houghton, Barbara Houghton, she was my fifth grade teacher. And I remember she would allow me to come to the classroom early to kind of pick up and clean up the classroom. And she would give me money to then go and spend at the bookstore.
That's great.
And so just from that point on, just knowing that people cared that much and to have an educator like her, that really meant a lot to me. When I graduated my senior year, she found me working at Panera Bread, and she came to that Panera Bread location, and she gave me a picture that I drew her as a fifth grader.
Oh, wow.
And she really shared how much I impacted her just as much as she had impacted me.
Yeah.
So I start with that one to say, she really showed me what care looks like from an educator standpoint and mentor, and we're still in touch today.
Yeah.
And so that story, but then I could fast forward to high school, and I think about Mr. Henson. Mr. Henson was my ninth grade English teacher with whom I'm still in contact with. But he really cared for his students on a different level.
Yeah.
He loved students who maybe had challenges that other teachers might go, no, I don't want those students in my classroom. Mr. Henson sought those students out.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was staying with my mother at the time, and our lights had been cut off and our power had been cut off. And Mr. Henson actually paid a bill, and he didn't have to do that.
Right.
And no one knows, but it just goes to show, again, educators who are that connected, who understand that, before you can show up in the classroom, at home has to be taken care of, and not having lights and water and things of that sort can be challenging. And so I think of Mr. Henson, and then the last person I think of, not last because I shouldn't say last, because there's been many educators, but another person that I have to kind of shout out would be Miss Thomas, Kathy Thomas, who was a school librarian and actually helped me come to Berea in many ways.
Yeah.
I came to visit Berea in '09 during Carter G. Woodson weekend, and I had never done a FAFSA. And when I came to visit, they told me, well, you're going to have to apply and do a FAFSA. Miss Thomas found out about this and she was like, you know what, get your mom's taxes, bring it to school, and I'll help you. And she sat in the school library and helped me complete the FAFSA because my mom didn't know how, I didn't know how, and quite frankly, I didn't know who I could ask to help me.
Right.
And so she certainly helped me and pushed me along the way, and I'm still in touch with her as well.
That's amazing. I was several years ago, I was on the board of a nonprofit that was a college access organization that helped kids, sort of low-income, first-generation kids get into college and then stay into college. And one of the most important things that this organization does for families is helps them with all the financial aid forms, because most of the parents, a lot of them were immigrants, many of them didn't speak English, and it was just impenetrable to them to figure that out. So it's amazing that one teacher stopped and helped you with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've already sort of started this conversation, but so how did you discover Berea? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I like to share Berea really discovered me. Because, again, I wasn't planning to come to college, and I was at school one day, and an admissions counselor from Berea was at Greenville High and actually talked to my counselor and said, hey, can you identify some students who would benefit from a Berea education?
Yeah.
And I happened to be one of 5 students that she identified, and I was the only one that actually ended up coming to Berea.
So let's stop there for a minute. Why did she identify you? What was it about you that you think she saw?
I think, Berea at that time, and still very much today, was looking for a well-rounded student. And one of the things that I was able to do throughout all of my time is connect with my teachers, but I also worked when I was in high school. And so I think many of my counselors and teachers saw the drive in me. So I would leave my junior and senior year, I would leave school around 12 o'clock. and I would work pretty much from 12:30 p.m. till 9 something at night.
Wow.
At Panera Bread, and so
Yeah.
I think in many ways my teachers and counselors kind of got to know me on that level and saw the drive in me and passion in ways that maybe I didn't even see in myself.
Yeah. And so was there somebody at Greenville High who knew about Berea College and who made that connection?
It was the counselor who came. I don't think Berea hadn't been mentioned much to my knowledge. So the counselor was Samantha McKenzie, who's a Berea alum.
Okay.
And so she was the
And she's
Berea
an admissions counselor.
admissions
from
counselor.
Berea.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
And she came down and talked to our guidance counselor, and actually met me that day to talk about Berea.
And so the rest is history, I guess. But so you head off to Berea. What was that like? So if you can remember back to the first couple of weeks of college, did you feel like you belonged there? Did you feel like it was going to be really difficult? Like, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, the transition was rough. When I first landed at Berea, I thought, wow, this is not for me. Growing up in the city and then coming to a place like Berea is quite the culture shock. And I didn't know anyone in the state of Kentucky. And so I literally got dropped off. We had lunch at the Long John Silver's, and my mentor mom had to head back, and so it was like, you're on your own. And so it was new. I had to learn. I was really shy, kind of had a shell, went to class, went to work, went right back to my room. And so that was me initially, but through supervisors and mentors, I was able to come out of that shell and get connected. But yeah, initially when I set foot on campus, it was shocking.
So what were your, so to go back to high school for a little bit, what were your expectations of yourself? Like, let's say when you were a sophomore or junior in high school, were you thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to college, or did you have sort of a career aspiration?
Yeah, my goal was to be an assistant manager at Panera Bread.
Okay.
I had what I would say, nothing wrong with that, but very shallow goal in the sense that I really didn't know the possibilities. And Berea really opened my eyes to that. But prior to that, I really didn't have a lot of career aspirations because I didn't really know what I was going to do when I graduated.
You didn't know it was like possible for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you get to Berea, and did you know how soon did you know that you wanted to be in the world of education?
Yeah, I think I knew immediately.
Yeah.
So when I came in, we had to declare a major, and I was originally wanting to be a high school math teacher because I love math, and I've excelled in math even in high school. And so I thought, you know what, I could do this. And so I knew I wanted to do something in education. Early on, I didn't know why, and so later, after reflecting and being an educator, I realized it was because of the impact that the educators have made in my life along the way and my drive to want to be able to provide that to other students.
Right. It's interesting because, as you were saying, right, you didn't really know what the possibilities were for you because you probably didn't see a lot of people in your life that you knew who looked like you, who were whatever, doctors, lawyers, accountants, name your profession, right?
Yeah.
But you saw tons of teachers, and a lot of them saw you positively and gave you positive sort of energy.
Yes.
Makes tons of sense. As I've been doing these interviews, so many people, when, I ask them a question about was there someone who influenced you, more than half the time it was a teacher. No matter what they're doing now, more than half the time it was a teacher. It's really kind of cool, and it makes me really feel really good because I started my career as a teacher, and I was raised by teachers. Both my parents were teachers. So okay, so there you are at Berea, and you've decided you want to be a teacher. So what was that like? How did you go about pursuing that?
Yeah, so I started with the math, and I realized, college was a little harder than high school. It got real.
Yeah.
And so what I realized is I just had a general passion for education, so I decided to go the elementary education route.
Okay.
So I started down that path.
Stop you there for a minute. Why elementary education?
There was just something about wanting to make the impact. I had done some reading at the time and was seeing things like California building prisons based off of third grade reading levels. And so I really wanted to think about what kind of impact could I make as an educator. I think certainly you can make an impact at any level. But there was something about the elementary years. And the other thing that I noticed in my elementary schooling is that there were very few males,
Yeah.
definitely African American males.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have a fourth grade African American male teacher, but for most students, they're not seeing a male, let alone an African American male.
Right.
And so that really excited me to think about elementary.
So you graduated from Berea with a degree in education, right? Okay. And did you already know, you already decided I'm going to go on to graduate school? Or was that later?
That was later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thankfully through Berea, I had to do student teaching and was able to make a connection with the school through an alum, actually, make a connection with the school in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, which is about an hour from Berea. And I started student teaching there, and it just worked out that there was an opening. I applied, and I received the job there. And so it was after I started teaching that I went to grad school following that.
What grade you were teaching back then?
I taught third grade
Nice.
at the time. Yeah.
That's a good age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a good age because they've grown up a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're not grown up so much yet that they're sort of starting to get sort of rebellious and,
Right.
and teenagery and like all that. So,
Right.
Yeah. That's a good
Yeah,
age.
yeah. I was teaching fourth is my favorite. To your point, third grade. Early on, it was, hey, Mr. Robinson, can you tie my shoes?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're still coming into. You're right.
Okay, so you wind up at graduate school. You wind up eventually with a doctorate from University of Kentucky. What was that like for you? Like, is that something you even sort of could have imagined when you were, say, back in Greenville?
That's a good question. No, I couldn't imagine it, honestly. And so that was like a wow moment, and to have my grandmother there, my dad, my stepmother, mother, and family there to witness that moment was such an honor. Honestly, I when I got the doctorate, I understood it wasn't just for me,
Right.
but it was even for my boys too. I mean, my boys are living the opposite experience. They're growing up on a college campus and going to school on a college campus. And so college is something we're already talking about.
Right.
And so, yeah, just to be able to go to school and get that doctorate, Berea really made that possible in so many ways. So, yeah, it was definitely an honorable moment and a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah. So here at Berea, you are director of the. What's your title? Dean of Labor? Is that your
Yep,
title?
Dean of Labor. Yeah.
We joke about Dean of Labor. That sounds kind of funny. So tell us a little bit about that program. What's the labor program at Berea? What's that like?
Yeah, so the labor program is a comprehensive work learning service program, and every student is as a part of their education, they're also working and engaging in work learning and service, and they're working in over 100 departments. And so what I like to say is the program gives students an opportunity to really apply the skills that they're learning in the classroom, and it's a safe way to learn and put into practice, figure out the things they like, things they don't like,
Right.
Their interests. I can't tell you how many students I talk to who say, I wanted to major in this, but I've decided to change my mind and I want to go in this route because I learned that actually I don't like this over here. And so to me, it's a program that really complements students' education, and it gives them an opportunity to explore, passions, interests, be it crafts, be it, I want to go and learn and work on the farm. Students are able to explore so many various ways that otherwise they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, and the labor program, too, in the bigger context of Berea, is one of the things that allows Berea to offer this sort of debt-free education that you had when you went through Berea. So it's a really important piece of the Berea model, I guess we should say. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's certainly a financial aid program, and it helps lower the cost, to your point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I was in school, we had what they called work study, and I was a work study student. But that it didn't really defray my tuition. It sort of did a little bit. It was like sort of in lieu of a loan, I guess, maybe. Yeah. But I also got a little paycheck from it. But here at Berea, it's really one of the most important things that makes this place what it is.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk to you a little more broadly about just education and sort of your thoughts. And so you have a master's degree, you have a doctor's. I have a master's degree in education too, but you went farther. I don't have the doctorate in education. So why did you think you needed those credentials, especially all the way to the doctorate?
Yeah, so because my love for education, I realized early on that I really wanted to be in administration as well. And so I originally started with my principalship after my master's. And so I was working on my principalship and very much saw myself being an administrator in a K through 12 school. In 2016, I got the opportunity to come back to Berea. And so in the middle of my principalship, I moved to higher ed.
Where were you a principal?
Studying, working on my
the sort of-
principalship.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
I moved to Berea, which then changed the focus to higher ed.
Right.
And I learned that all of my principalship coursework counted towards my doctorate.
Oh, nice.
And so it was a kind of like a no-brainer in the
Yeah.
sense like, okay, I got to get this doctorate. I've been
going.
working on this principalship. It kind of all flows together in that way.
And in your doctorate, was there I'm assuming you had to write some kind of thesis, or so what was that? What was your focus there?
Yeah, I actually focused on digital citizenship, and it was actually looking at Berea College and the fact that we give every student a laptop. And so I wanted to look at, what are these assumptions that we make about students' ability to use technology, and what is our responsibility as an institution. And digital citizenship's a topic I'm passionate about, and I do feel like we need to be doing more to prepare students in that way.
Well, it keeps getting that whole issue keeps getting more and more pervasive and important, both good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
Like, things that are great about it and things that are not so great about it. And just the idea, the difference just in my lifetime from, growing up with no internet and no cell phones and no smartphones and all of that till now, it's just, and I think some of it's great.
Yeah.
But I also think some of it's not so great. I mean, everyone's connected, but sometimes those connections can be, not perfect.
Right.
So we know. So let me ask you another question more broadly. You have a doctorate. You've thought a lot about education. Obviously, is there sort of any particular philosophy or education or theory of education that you sort of feel aligned with?
Yeah, I would say, through education, I would say being a lifelong learner, and what does that mean? And how do you, do that day in and day out? And so I think through all of my programs, and definitely my doctoral program, it really showed me that we're always learning, and you should be. We've never reached that pinnacle, if you will, of like, oh, I've learned everything I need to know, I can stop. And if anything, it really just continues to drive that passion of, how do I continue to learn, whether it's best practices, things in the field. And so I think, if anything, I would say that's what the theory or the piece that education has taught me is given me fuel to keep learning, if you will, and want to keep learning, whether it's about the latest AI and how we need to be thinking about AI connected to digital citizenship and so on.
So how does that manifest, not necessarily just in your professional life, but sort of in your personal life too, that idea? Because I think I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Nothing more important than being open to learning forever. And you're never going to learn enough. You're never going to stop. You're never going to finish. So how does that manifest in your personal life too?
Yeah, good. Another good question. So in my personal life, I would say, taking opportunities to go down paths that maybe I haven't been down before. So I'll give you an example. Recently, I've started to do fishing and get into fishing. And so we have a pond where we live, and my boys are excited. And I maybe fished once or twice growing up, and certainly did it as an elementary school teacher for 4-H camp. But I don't really know anything about fishing. And so I'm learning about it, right? And so how do you learn? Well, reading about it, watching videos, really trying to understand it. And so that's one way I've been doing that in my personal life, whether it's fishing, whether it's, I want to learn about, this newest gaming thing or the newest computer thing. It's being willing, again, to always make time for learning. And so another way I do this is I find audiobooks. So because I maybe don't have all the time in the world to read, but driving on my commute home, I'll, play an audiobook that's really helping me think about something, that I want to learn about. Do you like to
read fiction or nonfiction or listen to, I guess?
Yeah. I typically like to listen to, I know maybe it's because of the work I'm in, but it's usually professional development. Things like that to continue to learn and grow as a human and professional.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great, and I know you're super busy. So you mentioned earlier, and I think this would be an interesting a little bit of this and I didn't prepare you for this, so
Yeah,
I apologize.
you're good.
But it's really of great interest to me. So you're the father of three boys. I raised a boy. My wife and I raised a boy who's now a grown man. And you know the for the last, I don't know, maybe 2 decades or so, boys have begun to fall behind in school. I've heard statistics that say in the mid 70s, 60% of college enrollees were men and 40% are women. And just in that time period, that number has completely flipped. And now 60% are women and 40% are men, and that seems to even be eroding a little bit. So my first question is, and we don't have the answers,
Yeah.
but I just think it's an interesting question. So what do you think that is? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to what really made me think about elementary education. I think when you're able to see yourself in a space, and I think the messages that we're sending, even to our boys, that you can do education, you can learn. I think work sometimes is pushed a little bit more heavily in some areas than education itself. And I think about my boys. I'm trying to instill in them this passion for learning. In addition to, you will have to work, but learning is a part of that work. And so I do think that's part of the reason is that maybe our boys sometimes are being pushed to think about work. And I will say this, an area of improvement for education is how do you make it engaging and hands-on? And so being in the elementary realm, I work with many elementary teachers. And boy, when I walked in their classroom, sometimes it was overstimulating. I mean, it was just too much.
Right.
And so I said to those teachers at the time, like, have you thought about your boys who are coming in and, how will you engage with them? So I do think, some of it is on us as educators. How do we create a hands-on learning experience that would keep someone engaged that maybe likes to work with their hands and do things in that way? So I think it's twofold. I think it's, how do you start at home with that conversation and at school, and create environments where that type of learning, and excitement can be created, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think we see this at Berea for sure. But that idea of, in the past, and it's still, a lot of this is still the same as kids are asked to sit in a classroom, maybe at a desk for a lot of time, right? And for some people, that's great. Some people can do that and feel comfortable doing that. And they don't mind. But I think it's often the boys who need that. They need to be doing something physical. They need to be moving. They need to be, and it's not just boys, but I think, generalizing here, the boys sort of in particular need that. And I know there've been times when there's different schools who've decided, well, we're not going to have recess anymore, or we're not going to have gym class anymore. And I was like, that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And just seeing education as not just sitting at a desk,
Right.
Listening all the time, but also an active pursuit,
Yes.
right? And I think that's one of the issues. I also think you kind of were touching on it, this idea that, maybe college isn't for me. I just need to go make money or work. And sometimes that makes sense because maybe you're in an environment where you really do need to help your family and go earn some money and that kind of thing. But long term, I mean, every single statistic will tell you that a man with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or even farther over the long haul makes a lot more money.
Yeah.
And somehow we haven't internalized that idea with a lot of our men. And I think we see it in particular. Here we are at Berea, sort of the gateway to Appalachia, right? We see that among rural families. A lot of the boys are just, college isn't for me, whether that be because they have to work or they feel culturally they don't belong, they don't fit there, right? But we also see it in urban spaces too. Especially kids of color, young boys of color who are like, college isn't for me. Nobody wants me to go to college. Nobody's pushing me to go to college. So it's just it's an interesting topic that I'm really sort of passionate about, and I wish there was more I could do.
Yeah.
But you're sort of you're kind of conducting your own little research with your own boys.
Yeah.
So what's that like for you? I mean, having three boys. I mean, one of them's very young, so you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
quite ready
yeah.
to hear that stuff yet. But your two older boys, like, how do you how do you create an environment for them that's like, making them feel good about learning and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in your day in and day out conversations, and you try to get them excited. There are times when I ask my boys, what did you learn today? It's like, oh, I didn't learn anything. And it's like, oh, let's talk a little bit more. What did you do? Tell me what you did, and really helping them see. Well, actually, that is learning. And do you see how this is connected to this? And so, helping them make connections, I think, is important too. And then, really, I mean, I probably drive my boys crazy, but I try to make everything a teachable moment.
Yeah.
And again, try to make relevant connections day in and day out to say, well, you know why I do this? It's because I had to learn and figure this out. It's not because I know everything. My
Right.
boys thought because I got a doctorate. They're like, you know everything. And I was like, no, I don't know. I only know something about a very
a
specialized
specific
topic
thing.
area, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know everything, and here's what this means.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's just so great to see those kids here and your family here at Berea. So what would you tell a boy? Let's say there's a boy who's growing up in Greenville, for instance, and he's in high school, and maybe he's an okay student, not the best student, but what would you tell a kid like that to sort of encourage them to keep going to school?
Yeah, I would say to them, to the very point that you were making a minute ago, is think long term. I think so often the short term's in front of us. I almost let
Something
a car.
that teenage boys are notoriously
Exactly,
bad at doing.
exactly.
Yeah.
I almost let a car get in the way of me coming to Berea.
Yeah.
I had a year left to pay off on a car. I had a Ford Taurus.
Okay.
And I had a year left to pay off on it. And I remember looking at my grandmother and saying, I don't think I'm going to go. I've got this car. I got to pay it off. No one can afford it. And she looked at me and said, son, would you like to have your own family one day? And what a powerful question. And I said, yes, ma'am, I actually would. And she said, well, the best thing you can do is to leave and go to college. She said, you can get another car. And I'm here to tell you, my grandmother was right. I can get another car, but there's no way I would have gotten the education that I got through Berea. So I would look at a young boy and say, think long term.
Yeah.
And know that your hard work will pay off. I know sometimes it may not feel like it may not seem like it, but it truly will pay off. And education has a power to change your trajectory in ways that you don't even know.
Right.
I mean, if you had asked me, even as a first-year student at Berea, will you be dean of labor? I wouldn't have ever guessed that, And so just the fact that I took a chance on education, and how it's changed my life, I would really push those young boys to say, you know what, trust me, it will pay off. You don't know how. And sometimes that can be scary because we don't know how. Right. And you don't know what you don't know. But being willing to take those risks, I think, is what I would say to them. Think long term.
Yeah, and one of the things that worries me, and you sort of touched on it earlier, when you decided to become an elementary teacher, is this idea that there just aren't many men in those classrooms.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think. I mean, this is a long time ago, but when I was growing up, I don't think I had a male teacher probably until middle school.
Yeah.
Maybe the gym teacher was a man.
Yeah.
But no men in the sort of regular classes. The principal was probably a man. And just, the representation matters. Like you sort of touched on that. Like, what's possible for me? And if you're going through school and you never see a man in the classroom, well, I'm not going to be a teacher.
Right.
Men aren't teachers.
Right.
It's just a fact, right? Of a lot of kids' experience, which is really a shame. I wish there was something we could do to, incent young men to go into that profession, and not just elementary school, but anywhere. But yeah. I don't know how we do that, but I just wish there was some, because it really does matter. Like you're talking about growing up in Greenville, and you didn't see people who were doing this, that, or the other thing. So maybe that didn't even occur to you that
Right.
you could be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. Like it wasn't even in your head.
Yeah.
Because you need to see those people around you and say, oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Representation matters, and again, I'm thankful for Berea, and I went to Mount Sterling, and it's funny when I first went to the school, the principal at the time was a woman, and I was there with her, and the students asked if I was her bodyguard, and then when they realized that no, that's not our bodyguard,
Yeah.
it was, well, is he our new basketball coach? It's like, no, he's not. He's a teacher.
Were
So
you the only black person in that building?
absolutely, as a teacher. Now we did
Right.
have
A few black kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
but definitely black male teacher, the only one. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
My son had the opposite experience where he did Teach for America for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught in Englewood in Chicago, which is on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah.
A very distressed neighborhood. He was the only white person in the building. And he was there on that program, so it's a very different kind of
Right.
thing. But, he often felt like, gosh, who do I talk to? Like, what do I do? And he would call me and talk to me about it because it was hard for him. And he'd say, what do I do? And I you know what I told him? I said, listen to the black women.
Can't go wrong.
Do what
right.
they tell
That's
you.
right.
Like,
That's
you do
right.
what they say. You
That's
follow
right.
them. Yeah.
That's
That's
right.
what I told him. I think it worked. It helped at
Yeah.
least a little
Yeah.
bit, yeah. So, I'm trying to wrap all of this up a little bit. There's so much to talk. We could talk hours about
Oh, yeah.
education and your passion for it and the difference you're making. But so, I want to think a little bit about the future here. And you must think about that a lot because you've got little kids and, you're seeing all these students here. And there's just a lot going on now that makes us concerned about, the future of schools and education and all of that. So what are your thoughts about that, about sort of the future of education and of schools in America? Are you hopeful? Are you worried? Are you how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I would say I'm hopeful. And worried, but I would say more hopeful than worried. And the reason why is, we've been here before. I like to think. I think that, we've overcome many challenges, and I think Berea College is a good model that no matter the challenge, you can overcome it and you can figure out a way through it. And that in many ways, education is an answer to it. We may have to rethink how we do it. It may look different. We may have to change how we operate. But we can overcome it. And so to me, that gives me the most hope. The other thing that gives me hope is talking to current students.
Yes.
I mean, the ideas that students come up with blow me away at times. And so really helping students feel empowered and feel like that they're part of the solution as well, that we don't all have to figure it out. We can figure it out together. So that gives me the most hope. But then in the same side, I would say there is something to be worried about. I mean, the threat that education's under. I don't know that we've seen this level of threat. When we think about students in a K through 12 system having to worry about lunch, right? Because the funding is going away for lunch. I can tell you right now, school was a safe zone for many students because they were guaranteed a meal. So we're really talking about real challenges ahead, because before I can learn anything, I need to have a full stomach. I mean,
can't learn when you're hungry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there are some real worries in that regard, that if we start taking those critical funding components away, unfortunately, it will have a negative impact on the classroom in a way that students can't learn. So I think we have to build the right infrastructure so that students are supported and they can learn. Berea is an example of that. I think of the school, Harlem Children's Zone. That's an example of how do you remove these barriers so that students can show up and learn. So I would say I'm more hopeful than worried, but definitely worried with some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, and I like what you said before about, we've seen hard times before, there's been challenges before, and hopefully this is not a blip on the radar, but something we can work through and get through. And I think, to be honest, like, there are some things about education, in particular higher education, that we should all step back and look at and question and say, well, maybe we could do this better. Maybe we could be more open to lots of different opinions and ideas and all that. And I think that's definitely true. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming here and talking to me about all of this. So one last question. Here you are, Berea, Dean of Labor. And you're a relatively young man. I don't know how old you are, but you're much younger than me. You're a relatively young guy. So what's next for you? I mean, do you think about, like, we were talking about, like, what do you see? What can you see in the future?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're happy doing what you're doing, but and I know you're good at it. So what do you think about that for yourself and your family?
Yeah, so I would say education. I see myself staying in education. Certainly open to possibilities. I don't think that the work learning service piece is just my only angle. I, have been fortunate even here at Berea to teach in the classroom, a course on educational technology. Love that as well. And so I see many opportunities ahead. And I think no matter where I end, I'll be in education. And I hope that I'll continue to be a leader in education. And part of that, just like in the K-12 system, is to be able to make impact and change and to be represented. I mean, even, you're right, I'm relatively young, and I can't think of many people my age that look like me in a role like I'm in, and that's truly a blessing.
It is.
And I want to continue to kind of make that kind of impact so that others can look and say, oh, if he could do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
If he could do that, I could do even more, and to be an inspiration in that way. But education certainly I see as something that I'll be a part of for now in moving forward into the future too.
Well, I love that idea that you clearly see yourself as a leader.
Yeah.
And we need that.
Yeah.
So, like, we definitely need leaders, and we need people to be, thinking about the right things and moving this whole education thing forward. And so I know you're going to be one of those for years to come. So, Collis, I really appreciate you taking time today and talking to me about what you really want to talk about.
Thank you.
All right, Collis, thank you.
All right.
What I Really Want to Talk About is produced and recorded in the studios of Berea College News and Radio in Berea, Kentucky. You can learn more about this podcast and listen to all of the previous episodes at whatIreallyWantToTalkAbout.com. My contact information is on the website, so please get in touch with me if there is something that you really want to talk about. I'm Tim Monroe. Thanks for listening.